2 weeks ago, we saw the economy revised for 80 years with one swoop of the pen. Here to talk about those new way of calculating our economic growth is Peter Schiff. He's the CEO of Euro Pacific Capital. So we came in at 1.7%. That was better than expected, but the new math, when they show the math, you don't like it. What don't you like about it, Peter?
Well, there's an interesting phenomenon. Ever since 2008, when this Great Recession began, two-thirds of the preliminary estimates of GDP have been revised downward. Two-thirds of them. And the size of the downward revisions has been 50% greater than the upward revisions. I don't think this is an accident. From 2000 to 2008, we actually had two-thirds as many upward revisions as downward revisions, and the size of the revisions was about the same. So I think we've been getting overly optimistic assessments from the government that the media will highlight. And then months later, as they're downwardly revised, they don't talk about it. Like when they reported the 1.7% growth for the second quarter, nobody paid attention to another downward revision. The first quarter is now estimated to be only 1.1. It was originally reported at 2.5. And I think what's even worse about this 1.7 is the only way the government was able to calculate that was by assuming annualized inflation was just 0.7%. I don't believe that for 1 second. In fact, if inflation was 2.5% instead of 0.7, and I think it's higher than 2.5, but even if it was only 2.5%, the economy contracted in the second quarter, even with the government's overly optimistic assessment. So we'll see how much further they downwardly revise these GDP numbers, by the time it's all said and done.
Well, it's interesting. When I was in grade school, they used to criticize the new math, but this is the new math, and they've done this time and time again, is revising how they calculate things. But I can understand how, when you're trying to get your head and your arms around an economy as diverse and huge as the U.S. economy, that you have to make amendments, and then you have to sort of backfill it in. But it's an art.
What you're referring to is what they recently did. They decided to change the very definition of GDP because they're including as business investment, as capital investment, the money Hollywood spends on shooting motion pictures, which is absurd. That's not investment. That's spending. I mean, if you pay a salary to Tom Cruise to star in a movie, the $20 million you pay Tom Cruise isn't the same as using $20 million to build a factory. But now it is. We're going to claim that those two things are equivalent. So we're changing the very computation. And what GDP means now has a totally different meaning than when it used to. And why did the government do this? They weren't trying to be more accurate. They were trying to get a bigger number. And they see that our manufacturing sector is shrinking, real capital investment is going away, and so what they're trying to do is label ordinary expenses on consumer goods, because a movie is a consumer good. It's not a capital good. And what they're trying to do is reclassify that as being investment, because they want to make the GDP appear bigger than it normally would be if it was measured using traditional yardsticks. And they want to make the growth appear bigger. So this is government propaganda. This is what they've always been doing throughout the years when they measure inflation, unemployment, or GDP. They constantly redefine the method for calculating the numbers because they want the numbers to look better. In the case of GDP, they want the numbers to look bigger. In the case of inflation or unemployment, they want the numbers to look smaller. What's amazing is that the public, the financial media, academia, they just gobble this stuff up. There's not a word of protest. Where are the economists who are calling out the government for the fraud in what they're doing in trying to change GDP?
You know where they are? They're unemployed, unfortunately. There's no fighting the man, Peter. You know that.
Unfortunately, they're not. They're employed brainwashing our kids at university.
Oh, well, there's that. All right, CEO of Euro Pacific Capital in only the way he can say it, Peter Schiff. Great to have you on.